Hey everyone, in this video we're going to look at a contentious foul call, that D from Alan, a nice poach block from Nelson, and Gibson and Bansfield continuing to dominate on offense to bring the scores level at 11-11 in the USAU Nationals Final 2019.
Here in the second half, Sam Canner launches the pull for Machine. Bryce Dixon swats it down, dishes for Montague. Zone defense, it appears, at least initially. Poaching in the handler set, now matching up downfield. Goff's on Rehder. Dixon the open man. The wind whistles here in San Diego. One of the signs just got blown over in the distance off to our right. Puts perspective how tight these throwers have to be with a 175 grams of plastic, a true 50-50, and Nate Goff eats it up.
The pressure is on for Sockeye fielding the pull. The last 3 attempts have been either misfielded or turned over on the first pass. Montague milks the first pass for as many yards as possible and steals an extra step, risking a travel call which would immediately halt flow. Machine again overload the centre of the field at the beginning of the point, forcing the disc to initially go out wide. Bansfield moves the force to cover the upline, and Dixon breaks to Rehder in the middle of the field.
Poaching in the handler set, now matching up downfield. Goff's on Rehder.
Freechild attacks the centre, but Weaver poaches to cover the break side, and Bansfield flash poaches off a handler to pinch the throwing lane from all sides. Murray goes deep, and Canner switches to mark Freechild under. This would be a great switch, but Alan Garden isn't on the same page, so Murray ends up completely free deep. You can see from his shadow that he doesn't pull out of his deep cut, and with 7 machine defenders on screen, there's definitely no deep help. The timing seems good as Dylan winds up for the huck, but then he fakes it, and you can see that Freechild is a bit baffled. If this connection was the other way around, with Murray throwing to top scorer Dylan, there's a good chance the disc would have gone to the end zone for the score. It's possible the machine defense has engineered the less likely deep look, and after the fake, Sockeye must begin to build their offense again from a reset. Bansfield poaches into the central space, which is Sockeye's primary look, forcing the 8th pass of the offense to be again laterally towards the near sideline. Freechild gets the disc in his hands for only the 2nd time since 9-6, and I've noticed a tendency for key players who have not touched the disc in a while to rip it deep when they do get it.
175 grams of plastic, a true 50-50, and Nate Goff eats it up.
Before we look at the foul call, take note of Machine's smothering defense. There's a deep poach, Gibson poaches to take out the open under throwing lane and the upline space, and Bansfield and Alan Garden force Sockeye's resets to go deep or up the line. The poaching is so smooth and coordinated that it gives the appearance of Machine transitioning into a cup zone. The deep throw is a high stall Hail Mary thrown to no separation, and Rehder emphatically makes a foul call, illustrating that Weaver pushed him out of position, whilst Weaver shakes his head.
Rehder may have called a foul. The crowd thinks this should be Chicago's disc. What'd you see, Ian?
From the first replay, you can see there is significant contact between the two, and from the second, you can see it's initiated by Weaver and drastically affects Rehder's line. If you compare their positioning to the point on the field where a player jumped to catch the disc, you can see Rehder would have easily had a bid on the disc. Unfortunately, the call has to go to Observer, who rules in Rehder's favour, with the two still disagreeing emphatically.
So we've got a foul contest, yeah? You're going to choose to come to the Observer or no? Yeah, let's go to the Observer. Okay, Observer ruling, you were pushing him in the back, okay, with a chance to make a play. All right, so it's going to be here. All right, we're going to start with a check at the spot of the foul and then bring it to the front end zone line. No, hey, you don't know that. You don't know that.
Weaver arguing that it was uncatchable, but with Matt Rehder I think he certainly could have made a play on that disc.
Yeah, and Weaver's contact was more than just trying to box out and get his hips down in that low spot.
Wow, where did Langelen come from? Although there's clearly a 3v2 situation going on in the end zone, meaning that the defenders should take the runners instead of marking the disc, Weaver continues to foul Rehder and puts on a tight mark, leading to double coverage at the front corner. Langelen is still far away at this point, but Rehder hesitates on the throw, possibly due to a push from Weaver. At the moment of release, Langelen is going at full speed, takes 3 more powerful steps and launches himself through the disc. He also catches this interception, which is a great habit to get into, not only to secure the blocks and to start quick breaks, but it also makes it look around 5 times cooler than just knocking the disc out of the air.
Chicago has possession anyway. Wild red zone turnover from Seattle.
Machine keep the disc alive for a while, and there's a weak travel call on Gibson.
That was the loudest roar of the weekend we've had from the fans at Nationals.
Hands to having to immediately
Freechild calls an early switch to neutralise Bansfield's undercut. Dylan is a bit slow to react, but nothing comes of it in the end, and Freechild continues to switch onto the unders. Weaver hits an underpass to Goff with an around break flick, but Goff fails to attack the disc or to do the necessary footwork to keep it in bounds.
Goff had his foot on the line as he extended.
Bansfield is at it again, clogging the key space whilst the disc is moving, smoothly switching marks as Canna picks up the deep cut and denying the easy backwards reset off the line. But where did Nelson come from with the poach? At the same moment that Bansfield's mark chooses to go up line, Nelson's mark also moves to attack this space. Some great awareness and early movement from Nelson gets him in the right place at the right time to put pressure on the catch, and know how Bansfield was already moving to cover the mark Nelson left. It's the machine defense working together which results in the turnover, covering the behind and upline spaces with switches and poaches when the disc is on the sideline. After the turn, Nelson and Bansfield have the opportunity to go deep to overload the defenders, whilst Gibson comes to pick up the disc, but both Bansfield and Nelson are keen to get the disc moving, so Gibson streaks deep instead. Russell and Murray switch nice and early to neutralise Gibson's deep threat, and after a couple of passes, Bansfield calls a timeout.
The sure-handed Seattle team. Timeout, Machine. Russell fronting him.
After the timeout, Machine set up a vertical stack and run a very conservative and calculated offense, with Bansfield and Gibson adopting field surveying quarterback-like roles, and Sockeye switching to cover the big under and big deep threats.
Everybody on Chicago moving, trying to create space for one another. Bansfield to Alan Garden. Vaughn's been such an underrated player for Chicago for a number of years. Got some publicity last year, named Defensive Player of the Year by Ultiworld, but showing off his stuff in the finals against such a great team like Sockeye. What a throw that was. Bansfield to Gibson. He's just shy of the goal line, but he hits Nelson quickly. And we are tied at 11-all.
Gibson sees a crowded downfield with the Sockeye defenders swarming over all the Machine players. Bansfield comes back for a 2-yard dump pass, and Gibson jogs away for a few steps before changing direction sharply. As soon as Gibson plants his feet, Bansfield rotates his upper body as if he's going to throw a flick. But because he's got defenders around him, he's unable to get this off. So instead of wasting time faking it, he immediately goes for the high release backhand release. The area that he has to throw to here is very small, but the choice of throw means that none of the defenders have a bid on the disc. When Gibson gets the disc, he sees a kind of hammer opportunity, but it looks like the defender is more prepared for this than the offense. So he doesn't spend too long looking at it, and Bansfield comes back for another 2-yard reset pass. Because the force is towards the middle of the field, getting the disc backwards and on the sideline like this isn't actually too bad a position to be in, because it makes the break side throws very valuable. Again, Gibson gets free with a quick move, creating a window for Bansfield to throw to, but it's in a difficult area and it's quite hard to hit. There are Sockeye defenders waiting for it if it's wayward at all, but the shape that Bansfield puts on the disc is that it goes past this mark, away from the poachers, and then fades back in towards Kurt Gibson. You can see Kurt can't believe how perfect that throw is, and he almost converts it into a score immediately. In the end, he makes a 0-yard pass for the goal.
But he hits Nelson quickly.
This backhand breakside toss pass is thrown downwind, which will turn it inside out during its flight path, which is the opposite of throwing into the wind where discs get turned outside in. The less spin you have on the disc, the more it's going to be turned by the wind, and it's no coincidence that Bansfield's throw rides the wind, turning inside out and dropping perfectly into Gibson's path. By releasing the disc high, you don't need to point the front edge of the disc up, meaning it can be carried downwind rather than pushed down to the ground. One of Bansfield's many skills is the dexterity that he has with his backhands, and his ability to pull off very hard throws in a fraction of a second and make them look easy. This score, again created predominantly by Gibson and Bansfield connecting, is the 5th point in a row for Machine and brings them level with Sockeye at the climax of the 2019 club season, 11-11 in a game to 13. If you enjoyed this video, then share it with your teammates and check out the live stream archive available to patrons. Subscribe to hear about the next video in this series, and I'll see you again soon.
That's when those high release backhand flips are so effective and so devastating.